Folks, welcome to an all new episode of So Bad It's Good with Ryan Bailey. This is your pal Ryan, and this is your Tuesday episode. You've made it one day into this week. How is everybody doing out there? What a night! What a day Monday was. We got the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City season 5 trailer, and I thought it was pretty damn great. So, in this episode, we're going to do a full shot by shot breakdown of this trailer. We have the audio. We I go through extensive lengths to break down every shot. I think it's pretty thorough. And if you want to use the timestamp, you can skip to there right now. But before that, we'll go through a lot of pop culture stories, just me and you, and then we'll get you on to your day. Now, this week, it might be a little bit more me and you than me and a guest and you, just because my dad came into town today. So it's a little easier for me to do this solo when he goes to bed. I just got him to bed. I just got the young Bill Bailey to bed. So he will be on the show, I think tomorrow, and he's going to do a Patreon episode with me as well. So I took him out to dinner tonight. We paid his way. So he owes that to us. He does. Did you guys watch the Democratic National Convention, or did you watch the Love Island reunion? It does not say anything about you. You can have watched whatever. Now, we went to dinner, so I came back and I had to watch the Love Island reunion because, man, I invested time and energy into that show. And on Wednesday's episode, I'll go into more detail about that Love Island reunion, but I'll share some of my first thoughts right now. Okay. What a mess. No, no, listen, it was great. It was beautiful. Ariana did good. There was a lot of people on stage. That was one of my first thoughts. The product placement was hysterical. I love that they're in New York and they're getting a good old New York slice of pizza from Pizza Hut. It totally reminded me of Wayne's World when Wayne does all of the product placement in the movie. Beautiful. I was cracking up. I think there's a couple of thoughts just that I want to think about overnight, but the stuff with Nicole and Kendall, I think, is really, really dark. Now, we've talked about this on the show multiple times. Nicole and Kendall have been on the show literally right after they came out of the villa. And if you don't know, what happened was that I don't have enough bad words in the English language to describe whoever leaked this tape of Kendall. That is truly a horrific thing. But it was basically him in a very sexual situation, and they leaked it the day he got out. And there were so many questions around it, but it was a private video. And I'm telling you, and I know that life is hard, right? But imagine being on a reality television show. I talk about this all the time. Imagine being locked away for 6 weeks on an island without your phone, forming these relationships with a handful of people. You come out, and all of a sudden, millions of people are following you. Some are your fans, some hate you passionately. And then a video gets leaked that you did not give any sort of permission to be out there. And you are not prepared for that. And I'm telling you, people have hurt themselves for way less. This is the dark side of reality television. It's the dark side of fame. It's the dark side of life. And I don't know, obviously this person, whoever leaked it, had a axe to grind with him, but the wrong way to go about it. And I know I hope they find this person, and I hope they prosecute him or her or whoever it is, because it's really just disgusting. Especially if you look at the history of Love Island UK, there have been people that have taken their own lives on the Love Island UK. In fact, that happened, and that's why they instituted a drinking rule on Love Island, because of situations like this. And you also saw that in later seasons of The Bachelor and The Bachelorette, where they would hold them to a 2-drink minimum. I remember watching The Bachelor back in the day and The Bachelorette, where people were getting hammered on that first night. Remember? Hammered. So a lot of stuff can happen because of reality television. It's not just, oh boy, look at me, I'm famous. It's a really interesting conversation that happened that I want to talk about between Kendall and Nicole, but we'll save that for Wednesday. I just wanted to throw that out. It was just it was weird because there was some fluff in this reunion, but then there was there was a couple important conversations, and I don't know if those important conversations got enough time or were able to be taken as seriously as they should have because they were trying to fit so much into an hour and 20 minutes. And I also will say this is such a brilliant example of how everybody on a show makes a show work. It's not just the cast, it's not just the producers, it's editing, it's music. They did this thing at the end of it where they showed the unedited fireside vote when Andrea got voted out. Now, if you don't watch Love Island, you think I'm speaking a foreign language, but at some point you've thought I've spoken a foreign language on this show because you've not understood something I've talked about. But for the people that really followed Love Island USA, there was an important vote where Andrea got voted out, and they said that Leah kind of steered the vote to get Andrea out because she was potentially going to be with Rob, who Leah was with initially. And we saw the unedited clip without music, without editing. So they had like 8 boxes, bloop, 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 like they do in Summer House. And we just saw every angle of this thing. And to me, it felt like it went on for 40 minutes. It felt so long, you guys. It got to the point, and I'm a huge Love Island fan, where I got bored with it. And it shows you how important all of these other elements are to these shows. How important it is to have music, to have editing. You can take a 20-minute conversation and you can get it down into 4 really dramatic minutes where where the audience is like blown away. You're talking about it the next day. But sometimes with that 20 minutes, it just goes on and on and on. And I thought that was a really interesting thing to put out there. And part of me almost wishes they had done that separately or done that at the beginning, because it almost let the air out of the balloon for me. I felt the most dramatic moments on this reunion were in the beginning, and then it kind of slowly petered out. Like there were some really still fun, amazing moments. Like I said, Ariana, I think, did a fantastic job, but I think especially that long extended clip, it was cool if you're a fan of reality television just to realize how much goes in to all of these shows. But overall, it was I don't know, it made it almost boring. I got to watch it again because I might be out of school and I'm very tired right now. I also will say I made my dad watch the Love Island USA reunion. And as a grown man, I've never felt shame like that before. And as you know, I've felt shame a great deal in my life. Having to explain to my dad, I'm like, no, dad, they're like mid-20s. And what happened was like he hooked up with this. Well, Casa Amor, dad, is like this place where you go and the guys go and they're tempted. Like you guys, I felt like the biggest idiot. And he was really trying to pay attention. He was like, oh, okay. And then we got to that unedited clip I just talked about. And he's like, what? Wait, what's going on in time? Like he was so lost, but God bless him. He was really trying to focus. But it was one of those, like when you show somebody that you love something you really like. Have you ever done that? Like showed a friend like a stand-up special or played like one of your favorite songs, and then you're just looking at them the whole time because you want them to experience the same emotional highs and lows that you had in watching a piece of pop culture? It never works too. Like I've done that so many times with stand-up specials in the past, and then you're just looking at your friend hoping that they're going to laugh at the exact places that you laughed at the first time you saw it. And it's like it's a no-win situation. But I'm like, Dad, I got to do this for work. And I'm just shocked he didn't burst out laughing. So the Love Island reunion came and went. I thought there were going to be 2 parts, but there was only one part. Anyways, we'll get more into that on Wednesday's show. I want to cover a couple of other stories before we get to that Salt Lake City trailer. Today I did Jeff Lewis Extended with Mercedes Javid from Shaws of Sunset and the Traders, and Jeff Lewis and Shane, they were in there on the conversation as well. And we had this if you have Sirius, it's on channel 102 Radio Andy. You can get it at any time. You can just pull it up on the app and you can stream it at any point. But we had a really interesting conversation about this season of Real Housewives of Orange County and about Tamra and Shannon. And I tried to say as succinctly and intelligently as possible my feelings. And Jeff is friends with Shannon, a very good friend with Shannon, and also friends with Tamra. And it was very interesting because Jeff was like kind of somewhere in the middle. He was kind of standing up for Tamra. I mean, I think he was in complete agreement with us about John Jansen, and Alexis Bellino. Oh my God. And some of the calls were Kelly Dodd called in and was like, Alexis is a liar. She's a liar. And then I asked Kelly, I said, if you didn't find your husband, Rick Leventhal, would you have dated John Jansen? And she was like, fuck no. Fuck no. What'd she call him? She called him she's like, what? Oh, Uncle Fester? No, what'd she call him? She called him somebody from the Addams family. Lurch. She called him Lurch. And I was like, damn, Kelly Dodd. But it was interesting because Jeff was kind of standing up for Tamra and kind of saying, like, listen, when you are so many years into a friendship and you're used to picking up the pieces for somebody again and again and again, it does get to a place where sometimes you have to cut ties. But my whole point is I understand all of that. But what I really don't agree with is you can cut ties, but you don't then have to go on a show and completely embarrass somebody and keep calling them an alcoholic, screaming at them, telling them they're a liar. You don't, I mean, that's the part where I feel like it almost is so disingenuous and it feels so just shitty and shady. I had better language for that, but it feels so off-putting. To watch. It gives you the heebie-jeebies to watch this stuff. And because you're just like, okay, I get the point about the friend stuff, but then that doesn't mean you get to rub their nose in it the entire rest of the season. And that's the part where I can't go there. Like, I just don't agree with how she's handled it. And it is funny though, when you get into these it was a great conversation. It was like a lot of fun, but it was serious. But it is so funny when you're talking so seriously about this and you realize you are talking more seriously about a reality show than you talk about your own life sometimes. But I guess that's like the fun in it too. Anyways, go listen to that if you have Sirius XM, because I thought it was a great conversation. And it's also interesting because when you talk to people like Mercedes and Jeff, they've all been on reality television and they all know these people behind the scenes. Like Mercedes was telling me stories about Tamra doing the Traders that I thought was like, oh, wow, that's really interesting to hear. But they know how all of this works. I think there's a difference when you start knowing these people a little bit as opposed to just watching them on television. And it feels like sometimes a secret society because you're like, yeah, but if you watch the show, this I think is how you would feel about it. And I think that is the amazing thing about pop culture and reality is that we have very differing opinions, all of us, I guess, with everything in the world. But what's so exciting is that exchange of ideas or information. Like there were a couple things that Jeff and Mercedes said where I was like, oh, that's an interesting point. I think I understand that a little bit better. It's like not being defensive about everything, but it's great when you're like, oh, I see it this way. Somebody else sees it the other way. And then you kind of try to convince each other or share why you feel this way and why you feel that way. So anyways, I had a fantastic time having that conversation. Okay, let's see what else is out there in the news. Okay, now go with me here, folks. I know this could be weird, but so we went out to eat with my dad, and we went down the street to this great restaurant, Pache, that I really like. My dad has really liked it. We went there with my mom as well a couple years ago, maybe. I'm not sure when. And it's coming up on mom's year anniversary of her passing. Now, I know this took a hard left. Like I said, the timestamp is there if you want to go to the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City recap trailer, which is very silly and very fun. But on Sunday, it'll be a year since she passed. I can't believe it's been a year. I cannot believe it. I mean, it really feels like yesterday. And me and my dad were talking when he got in. This wasn't a really intense conversation, but we were talking how wow, it's going to be a year on Sunday. And he was like, well, think about where we were a year ago. And I've talked about this a couple of times, but I can't express, and I think some of you might know if you've dealt with a sick person that you've loved, especially in like those final moments or the final week or so. Like we didn't know it was the final week, but a year ago this Monday, it started getting bad. Now she passed on a Friday. And it was I've never experienced something that horrifying and sad. I mean, just horrifying. What I was watching my mom go through and what we were helping her with. and watching her kind of lose communication and just, I mean, just you couldn't even comprehend it. And you keep going because you kind of disassociate in a weird way, and this is batshit. And I just remember like pacing, like I would pay, and it's not a big house, so it would just be pacing down this hallway. Like it would be too intense, and I would just go out in the hall and I would pace, and then get back in there. And but I was just thinking, man, a year ago, and I remember in those moments thinking, oh, I can't, I can't imagine living past this moment. You know what I'm saying? Like I can't imagine a year from now. And I guess that's the cool thing. I don't think cool is not the right word, but I guess that's one of the, I don't know if beautiful is the right word either, but I think that's one of the interesting things about life is that life does go on. And I think that that's also something that makes me sad. It's like when you get your heart broke for the first time and you think, you're like, oh my God, I've never had this feeling. And then you'll only have that feeling one time. You'll get your heart broken again and again, but you'll only get that hurt once because it's so foreign, that feeling. And that's what it was. I just remember, and I still have not come to grips with some of the things that I've seen or that experience. And I think that's what I'm trying to work out with in therapy right now, because it was so scary and heartbreaking and all of those emotions in one. And you're just like, oh my, I mean, like I was like my hair was like falling out. And I was just like, this is a genuinely horror film. But here we are a year later. Dad's made it. I mean, and he's had so many rough goes of it this year, but he's made it. My sister's made it. I've made it. And the whole point of all of this is that, like, okay, wow, it's been a year. It still hurts like hell. I mean, God, it still floors you, but we're still here. Now, I brought this up because what was so interesting at dinner was there was a Fiona Apple song playing. Yeah, I went. Yeah, you did. I bet you didn't expect to hear Fiona Apple. Now, Fiona Apple is just one of the great singer-songwriters. Her last album was called Fetch the Bolt Cutters, that was released like during the pandemic. Fantastic album. But remember like Tidal, her first album, Win the Pawn, her second album, really just an amazing body of work. I mean, just fan-flippin-tastic. Well, they were playing her cover of the Beatles song Across the Universe at Pache tonight. And it took me back because I was like, whoa, I haven't heard Fiona Apple's version of Across the Universe in a long time. Now, if you don't know what I'm talking about, it's probably on Spotify, but it was from the Pleasantville soundtrack. Do you remember that movie Pleasantville with Tobey Maguire? Remember that? Really good movie. But they had a good soundtrack, and Fiona Apple's version of that was on there. But remember a couple weeks ago, or maybe it was last week, when the Trinity Oracle sisters, the three psychic sisters, were on? I guess the first time they were on, they were talking about my mom, and they said, "Your mom's always here, and she'll communicate with you through music." And sometimes I'm not listening to music and going, "Oh, mom, talk to me." Like I'm not like that, Like I've wanted her to come to me in dreams or, like things like that. But like, I haven't just sat in front of a stereo and go, hit me. But this was interesting because this song played, and I remember listening to this song with my mom in her like cabriolet convertible when it first came out. And she thought it was such a beautiful song. And the lyrics, I was just looking at the lyrics, and it says, words are flowing out like endless rain into a paper cup. They slither while they pass. They slip away across the universe. Pools of sorrow, waves of joy are drifting through my open mind, possessing and caressing me. Another lyric says, sounds of laughter, shades of earth are ringing through my opened ears, inciting and inviting me. Limitless, undying love, which shines around me like a million suns and calls me on and on across the universe. And I don't know, it hit me at dinner. I was like, man, is this mom speaking to me? My dad's here. I'm here. She used to be here. We were all here at this restaurant together. She liked this song. And there's something so nice to think about this song, thinking that like Becky's out there somewhere in the universe, right? Or at least that's what I thought in that moment. Ooh, dad just got up to get to the bathroom. Be quiet. So, well, the other reason I bring that up is Fiona Apple, right? Fiona Apple, really popular in the 90s, really insanely popular. And then she started kind of realizing, or she always had this attitude towards fame, that it was kind of a load of horseshit. And she didn't want to be turned into this person that MTV chewed up and spit out. I mean, she even won like MTV Music Awards. Go up and look at her speech. She like just told off the audience, and it was really ballsy. But after that first album, she was like, I don't care to be your sex symbol. I don't care to be famous. I want to make music, but even that, I don't even know if I like the byproduct of what this music gets you of fame in a sense. And the reason I bring this up is because there is a new pop singer. I don't know what you would actually genuinely describe her. I mean, just really seems like a fantastic musician. Her name's Chappell Roan, or like that's the name of her project. Her actual name is something completely different, but she goes by that. That's, she calls it her musical project. And she's only 26 years old. She has one of the biggest albums in the country right now. This week, I think it sits at number 2 on the Billboard charts, right behind Taylor Swift, because Taylor keeps releasing like new digital versions of her albums that keeps her at number 1. I mean, Taylor is going to be insanely popular no matter what she does. But Chappell Roan isn't looking to get that top spot, but her album has slowly increased over this last year. And we've talked about this before on the show where it was interesting. She was playing music festivals and she would be like middle of the day, and she had a really good crowd for middle of the day. And then her album kept growing. People really started loving it. And then by the time she took the Governor's Ball stage in New York at a music festival like 2 months ago, she packed it out. I mean, she packed it out. It was an insane crowd. There were aerial shots where you're like, holy shit. And then she was already scheduled to do Lollapalooza in Chicago a couple weeks ago. They moved her slot to a later slot, still a daytime slot. And it was on Thursday, and it was the largest crowd Lollapalooza has ever had in terms of seeing one single artist. I mean, imagine this, 26 years old. And if you go look up Chappell Roan, like she has like an EP or an album from before, and you would not be able to tell it was the same artist because it seems like she really committed to doing the music she wanted to do. And I will say this all leads up to nothing can prepare you for fame. Whether we're talking about the Love Island USA cast, the Vanderpump Rules cast, Real Housewives of Orange County, how we all throw in our opinions, myself completely doing that all of the time. But imagine this, you're 26 years old, you really love being a singer-songwriter, and you love the music that you put out, and things are going good. And then things start getting better and better and better and better. And you are wanted by everybody all of a sudden. Everybody wants to have a piece of you. And I think we see this time and time again. It doesn't matter which decade. It doesn't matter if you're Charlie Chaplin in the early days of silent film. Doesn't matter if you are, I'm trying to think of some good examples. I mean, think about Madonna when she first came out. And Madonna really seemed like she was built for fame. But you see what even like decades of fame does. It really skews your whole way of looking at the world. And anyways, she put these 2 TikToks out today because I don't want to say she's having a hard time with fame, but it sounds like she wants to be doing this music. If we love this music, that's amazing. But you don't own her. And it's interesting. I want to see how you guys react to these clips because I think sometimes, and try to get it, it's like she comes off maybe partially a little aggressive because it seems like she's freaked out and probably has a right to be. So try to put like her tone away and try to listen to the words that she's saying. And I'm not going to say anything. Just tell me what you guys think of these. It's 2-minute clip. Let's start right now. This is Chappell Roan, the biggest thing in music right now.
I need you to answer questions. Just answer my questions for a second. If you saw a random woman on the street, would you yell at her from the car window? Would you harass her in public? Would you go up to a random lady and say, "Can I get a photo with you?" And she's like, "No, what the fuck?" And then you get mad at this random lady? Would you be offended if she says no to your time because she has her own time? Would you stalk her family? Would you follow her around? Would you try to dissect her life and bully her online? This is a lady you don't know. And she doesn't know you at all. Would you assume that she's a good person? Assume she's a bad person? Would you assume everything you read about her online is true? I don't care that abuse and harassment, stalking, whatever, is a normal thing to do to people who are famous or a little famous, whatever. I don't care that it's normal. I don't care that this crazy type of behavior comes along with the job, the career field I've chosen. That does not make it okay. That doesn't make it normal. It doesn't mean I want it. It doesn't mean that I like it. I don't want whatever the fuck you think you're supposed to be entitled to whenever you see a celebrity. I don't give a fuck if you think it's selfish of me to say no for a photo or for your time or for a hug. That's not normal. That's weird. It's weird how people think that you know a person just because you see them online or you listen to the art they make. That's fucking weird. I'm allowed to say no to creepy behavior, okay? I don't care that abuse and harassment, stalking, whatever, is a normal thing to do to people who are famous or a little famous, whatever. I don't care that it's normal.
So that was her obviously lashing out at what she is deeming to be getting too much. People have like tracked down her family and people have harassed her online. And a lot of it's people that desperately love her. But at the same time, imagine if you're not used to that. Imagine that. And that's why I think it's interesting to compare her to somebody like the Love Island cast, where you're just going about your business. Now, you wanted fame, right? Oh, I want to get on a reality show. I want to be famous. I want to have Instagram followers. And you think, oh my God, my life will be perfect if I am famous. My life will be amazing. Because that's how we're conditioned to think about fame and TV and movies and music. We're conditioned to always think, wow, these people are amazing. I mean, and not reality stars sometimes, but a lot of the times we look at that and we want to see ourselves in that, or we do see ourselves in that, and we strive to be that. And you're so jealous and so wanting of some sort of fame or somebody to take notice of you and say that you're special. But the other side of this that you see again and again and again, and I think even though, she might have said it in a certain way, I've seen people like kind of take umbrage with her tone, which is complete bullshit. And women especially get hit with this a lot about their tone. Like it's like, well, listen to what she's saying. I mean, the words actually make a lot of sense. And I think there is this weird trade-off that you feel like, okay, I have to do this because that's part of being a celebrity. Well, maybe, or maybe in the past, who knows? But also the whole thing is we're supposed to appreciate what they give us, right? Whether it be a good book that somebody wrote or a great song that somebody wrote. You hear it and it makes your life a little better or makes you feel a little less alone in the world. But at that point, that's, you don't own them. They're not yours. And I find that interesting. The parasocial relationship that's gotten more and more intense this past decade because of social media, there is this sense of ownership. We talk so much more personally about everybody in pop culture than we do with the people in our own lives. Just listening to all of the Blake Lively discourse in the last couple of weeks, where you're like, whoa. I mean, it almost made me wake up a little bit and go, what the fuck am I doing sometimes? Like, that's why I always like skirt that line of trying to make myself laugh and also trying to kind of figure it out or make certain points. But even me, I'm like, oh, I get lost in the weeds. And then you're like, I got to go out, as Sophie Ross says, and go out and touch some grass. But we're so involved now. We're so in it. And you have to remind yourself what you truly love about all of this. And it's like just watching something that blows you away or listening to something that blows you away. But there seems to be now a takedown, because when you don't get what you want from a celebrity, there is a complete takedown where the other side of that pendulum swings and you want to take them down and you want to make their life a living hell. And this Chappell Roan is somebody that everybody's celebrating right now. And I love it. She did an interview this week, and I think it was with Bowen Yang, actually, from SNL for Interview Magazine. And she was talking about, like, I don't care about chart position. Like, I don't care. Like, I just want to make good music. I don't care if I'm number one. I just want to make the music I want to make. I want to be able to perform. I want to, that's what I did all of this. I don't, and I think that's such a smart way to go about it because you almost ensure yourself a longer career of not burning yourself out and burning out the public. If you are able to kind of put a stop sign and slow things down and say, okay, this is what's important to me. I'm not chasing fame. I'm actually wanting to be in this for the long haul. And that's what we were talking about, I think, on Monday's episode, or maybe it was on the Patreon, of just where do you go in a career these days? Like, how do you make this? And we were mainly talking about reality television. You're not supposed to last more than 10 years. That's why the Vanderpump Rules cast, it's like, that doesn't come around a lot. I mean, you can argue the Kardashians, but other than that, there's not a lot of examples of people being able to make a living out of this for 2 decades. I mean, you have a couple people from Beverly Hills, a couple people from the OC, people from Vanderpump Rules. I mean, usually at a certain point, you burn out and you have to go figure out your real life and what you have to do. And that's why I think fame, there's such a toxicity to it. Whether we talk about the Love Island cast, whether we talk about Chappell Roan, it really does a number on you. And we watch it. We see it with our own eyes. I mean, covering Vanderpump Rules for that first season on the Patreon and seeing them in 2013 when they really were just wanting to be actors and singers and were, sexy, and they worked at this bar and everything was great. And now you see them in 2024 and you're like, damn, this is dark. And I don't know how you remain true to yourself when you've built up now so much of your personality on TV and based around what other people say about you. And that's why when somebody like Lala says, well, you're living in the comment section, which, by the way, I think we all kind of get the vibe that Lala lives in the comment section. That's what we're talking about, is that you got to get out of that comment section and figure a way to live your actual own life. I don't know. I wanted to play that for you guys. And I know you're like, oh, this guy's all over the place right now. But it's something I watched it earlier today and it really stuck with me. And then I heard Fiona Apple and I was thinking about her and I was thinking, man, she really kind of did it her way. She did it her way. And I remember when she first came around in the 90s, and I mean, she was big and they were trying to get her to writhe around and be sexy, like in the Criminal music video. Remember that? In the little skimpy, the skimpy underwear. And they really tried to make her this young, sexy thing. And she woke up at a certain point and was like, no, that's not, no, I don't want to do that. I want to do my music. And I mean, that's called remaining true to yourself. So it'll be really interesting to watch Chappell Roan from this point on, because I'm like, damn, I mean, that's it to me. I mean, to me, that's cool as hell. I love that. To me, that makes me like, I'm really interested to hear what she comes out with next. Which, by the way, another fun fact, pop culture fact. You guys know this? Fiona Apple, back in the day, she dated Paul Thomas Anderson, one of my favorite film directors. Boogie Nights, Magnolia, There Will Be Blood, The Master, an amazing film director. But they dated for a bunch of years, you guys. And there's really funny stories. She dated him when he was doing the movie Magnolia. There's a really funny story of Fiona Apple hanging out with Quentin Tarantino and Paul Thomas Anderson one night. And I think Quentin and Paul were, doing a little, nose skiing, as it were, and just like ranting about movies. And just imagine that. Quentin Tarantino, Paul Thomas Anderson, both very verbose, excitable people. And they were just going on and on all night about films. And Fiona Apple, I think it was the story, she was like, what the fuck am I doing here? Oh my God, they're annoying. And I always laugh about that. It's It's great. Okay, so moving on from that, actually, you know what? I'm just going to call it a night right now. I am exhausted. I was like, wow. I just paused and I thought about all the things that I just talked about. And I was like, wow, way to overshare and then tie in Fiona Apple with your mom and Chappell Roan. I was like, yeah, maybe it's time to get to bed. Anyways, stay tuned right now because we have the full shot by shot trailer reaction of Real Housewives of Salt Lake City season 5, which I was right. It premieres September 18th. It's right around the corner. So here we go. I thought it was a fantastic trailer. Let me know what you guys think, and I will talk to you bright and early on Wednesday morning. Bye.